I don't think I really, thought about it, let's say 20 years ago when I first thought about going into business and being my own boss, if you will. Didn't think about all the hats that I would need to wear in order to, just day-to-day operations. You wear all of those hats, 4 or 5 hats a day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the podcast. Today, we're continuing our conversation on making pivots, and I have a dear friend of mine who is joining me in the Huddle. Our Huddle episodes are designed to be short, power-packed conversations that give you a lot in a little bit of time. And today, you'll get to hear a conversation I had with Shemekia Lawrence. Shemekia pivoted from corporate leadership roles to being a franchise business owner. And today, we dig into franchise ownership, how to make career pivots, the highs, the lows, and Shemekia's tips for success. Shemekia Lawrence is the owner-operator of Bumble Bee Blinds of Frisco, Texas. She spent 23 years in corporate finance before transitioning into franchise ownership. Entrepreneurship was a goal Shemekia set for herself long before leaving her beautiful hometown of Beaumont, Texas. After leaving Beaumont, Shemekia received her bachelor's degree in finance from Texas Women's University and her MBA from the University of Phoenix. Shemekia also has a beautiful family with her husband and 2 adorable children. You are going to love this huddle with one of my very favorite people. Enjoy. Welcome to Enelra. Have you ever thought about unlocking the full potential of yourself or the leaders in your organization? Imagine the impact of executive coaching. Ready to transform your leadership impact? Visit us at www.enelratalent.com. Enelra, coaching solutions that work. Shemekia, thank you so much for joining today. I am really looking forward to this conversation. So thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I was thinking about this the other day, which is, Kelvin and I actually, I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but Kelvin and I looked into franchise businesses at one point. We had first gotten married, and we were just considering it as an option. And at the time, I remember being surprised by how many of the businesses that I frequented or used were actually in a franchise model, because it's not always clear, from a customer perspective, but I remember being really surprised by how many businesses were in that model. So I feel like there's more options than maybe those of us know or even we're aware of on kind of a day-to-day basis. It seems to be a very popular business model.
Absolutely. And I think it's grown a lot over the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think I'm excited about this conversation for a couple of reasons. One is I know just like we were interested, I know a lot of people that have explored it or considering exploring this kind of a business model. And, just a lot of us make pivots. Like I'm interested in how you've made this pivot to what you were doing previously to what you're doing now, because whether it's work pivots or relationship pivots or, care, kind of family caretaking responsibility pivots, we all have to pivot multiple times in our life. So I'm interested in how you made this kind of intentional pivot. Like life didn't force you to do this, but you chose to do it. So I want to learn about how that's going and how you've been able to do that as well.
Let's get into it.
Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Okay, so before we jump in, I'm going to share a couple stats about that I pulled about just franchise business models in general.
Okay.
So one thing I thought was interesting is that people tend to experience more success in the franchise business model than independent. So one stat said that, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, which like federal government, said that about 20% of independent businesses close after 2 years, but 92% of franchisees were still going, kind of going strong after 2 years, that it's just a lot more success, I guess, in the franchise business model than in kind of these independent businesses, like just starting it up on your own. So I thought that was interesting. And then the last thing I thought, just for everyone to understand franchise business model, I wanted to be able to explain it, like for us to explain it to everyone. And so I used my new favorite tool, ChatGPT, and I said, tell me what a franchise business model is. And it gave me a paragraph and like 8 different components. And I said, okay, no, tell me what it is in one sentence. Exactly. Let's shorten that. Tell me one sentence. So I'm going to read the sentence. I want to see if that is accurate for what your experience is. So Chat told me that a franchise business model is a system where a business owner licenses their brand and operational processes to a third party known as a franchisee, who pays fees and royalties to operate under that brand. So, what do you think about that in terms of your experience?
I agree. That is very accurate. It is a shortened version of the paragraph that you found initially, but that is accurate. I would
That's
agree.
accurate. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Okay, so we'll use that as a starting place then. So chat help me again. It helps me all the time, but it helped me again. So I guess my first question is, what did you like when did you first have an interest in owning a business just in general?
I'd say my interest started when I first entered college, working on my undergraduate degree.
Hmm.
Initially, I went to school to become a dental hygienist with plans to go on to dental school. I
Oh,
pivoted after 2 years and started working on a finance degree. One of the courses that was required was economics. And so after about 2 years, I said, I think this is something that I'd really like to look into more, possibly be a business owner. So many moons ago, I won't say how many years ago, but
yeah.
the interest really started when I was working on my undergraduate degree.
Okay, interesting. And I never knew about the dental hygienist skill set and work you've done in that space. So,
Never.
okay, you made
So
pivots early on.
that was a major pivot that happened early on in life.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, prior to this, were there other businesses you've owned prior to this one? You said the interest started really early, even from an undergrad standpoint. Have you been in other businesses prior to this one?
Yes, so actually, my husband and I own a small business that does home automation. He's primarily takes care of that, but we've done that before, and that's the only business we've really owned outside of the franchise that we own currently.
Okay. Okay. So then what led to this pivot? Because you said you thought about it early on. You'd done a little bit of business, the two of you all together, but what do you think led to this kind of pivot from what you were doing before? Maybe share a little bit about what you were doing before to what you're doing now.
Okay, so last May, I stepped away from corporate finance. I had been working various corporations in various finance related roles for the last 23 years. How we really made the decision to pivot started probably 10 years ago. We had looked
Mhm.
into franchising previously. UPS Store was one of the ones that we had spent a lot of time talking to the franchisor UPS Store and had was reviewing the franchise agreement, had gotten started down that path. Now we decided to not go down that path eventually, but that's kind of where we started with the franchise. After that, we picked it back up 2 years ago and decided to work with a franchise business coach who then presented various
Mm.
opportunities to us. So that's kind of how
Oh,
we landed on where we are today and decided to pivot from the corporate finance.
okay. Okay. I hadn't heard of a franchise business coach. So kind of what attracted you to a franchise model as opposed to like it sounds like the other business, the home automation is really more of an independent business. Like you started on your own and, based on you all creating that, like what led to you looking into a franchise model specifically?
One word, and that's support. The franchise, specifically the one that we chose, they have tons of support. If you think about going from working for a corporation to working for yourself, you wear a lot of hats. So you become now the HR department, IT, you become your finance, all the things, right? And so the franchisor that we chose had tons of verticals, and that was the support that we needed. They have an accounting system and personnel that will assist with that if needed. They have an IT department that can support us. So support is the word. Like that's why we landed on franchising is because of the support that the corporate brand can offer.
Right. Oh, I want a franchise. I want the support. That sounds so good as you compare it to independent, like to your point around
Very different.
IT and just even both the work of it and the thinking of it, of just
Yes.
deciding, okay, what kind of email system do we want to use? Like there's just so much of that you don't have independent. So I could see, yeah, the benefit of that. Because I think that was one of my biggest challenges going from corporate to business ownership was the loss of support. Like that's a
Yes.
really, yeah, that's a big deal.
And I'll be honest, I don't think I really, thought about it, let's say 20 years ago when I first thought about going into business and being my own boss, if you will, didn't think about all the hats that I would need to wear in order to, just day to day operations. You wear all of those hats, 4 or 5 hats a day. It's not once a month. It's not, every 6 months. Annually, it is
Yeah.
every single day you are wearing the various hats.
Yeah, yeah. So what do you think? Let me ask you this. What do you think, what from your corporate role do you think has helped you the most in doing what you're doing now? Because I feel like we always takes things, it's like a reason why we go through certain paths. Like, what about your corporate finance experiences do you think you're using the most or leveraging the most in this new world that you're in now?
I think the most important thing that I've taken from my corporate experience is the finance aspect of the work that I did previously, because I'm always looking at numbers.
Mm.
So we sell custom window treatment. So I am presenting quotes to clients, potential clients, right? Those are numbers, everything, the expenses associated with that, as well as just running the business in general. So having a financial mindset and having that experience, I think, helps a ton. I'm
Hmm.
looking at my own P&L. I'm not looking at a corporation's P&L, looking at my P&L every day.
Right. Okay. Yeah, but and just that, yeah, I just the understanding of how piano even works, like
That's right. What is a P&L?
exactly. Yeah, let's start with that. Profit and loss. That was listen, that was kind of think what helped me the most too, is I had a chance to, even though I was in HR roles, I'd had a chance to be on some business teams that required me to look at a P&L and understand how to manage expenses. And some of those things helped certainly a lot. I don't think I could have done this without that actually. As I look back, I'm like, I don't know if I could have done what I'm doing now without those experiences before. So
I'd also like to add, though, Arlene, that I think just being organized. So I managed teams in the corporate environment, which calls for a lot of organization, because not only do you have tasks and roles and responsibilities, but you're also managing those of other people.
yeah.
So you have to be organized. Otherwise, that's a huge issue. So the organization also allows, I think, helped with the easing into this new role.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, what's been most enjoyable about this pivot you've made? Like this is, and I'm gonna ask you what's been most challenging, but let's start with the joy part of it. What's been most enjoyable about kind of the pivot you've made?
So part of what I do includes sales. Like that's a huge part of the business,
Mm.
right? While I have design consultant, someone that sits in that seat, I'm
Mhm.
also selling, right? There are times that there's schedule conflicts or what have you, right? So I have to go out on and take sales calls. I enjoy talking to people in their homes, just, again, having the finance background, you talk numbers, but you're talking to people. I am in people's homes, just talking to them, finding out, their stories, them listening to my story if they're comfortable in, doing so. And that's what I've enjoyed the most. Honestly, I thought that would be the one thing I would enjoy the least, but I'm actually enjoying that the most. I enjoy one-on-one conversations, always have. And so
Yeah.
I'm enjoying being in people's homes or in their businesses, figuring out how I can help them and hearing their stories.
Okay. Yes. And what's been most challenging?
So I'd say the most challenging thing I'm experiencing currently is managing. So I thought I would have more control than I actually do, because I rely on a lot of different people, right? And so I've got, part of what we do involves, vendors. I order from vendors, right? There may be timing issues, maybe out of stock issues, there may be shipping issues, right? I use 1099 contractors to install the product that we sell. I'm relying on them. So me having to rely on other people has been the most challenging aspect of owning this franchise.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Because I guess was that unexpected, do you
It
think? Like
was in my
yeah.
mind, and maybe it was just I hadn't had the experience, exposure, but in my mind, I felt like I would have more control, and honestly, I don't. Not
Yeah.
nearly as much as I thought I would, and so I'm just relying. I'm relying on a lot of people, right? Not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
myself. I felt like I would be able to control more. That's
Yeah,
that's
I can see that because I know sometimes I'll tell people, I'm like, oh man, I got a lot going on. I just I need some time, and someone be like, well, why don't you ask your boss for a day off? It's like, okay, yes, I don't have a boss, but to your point, I don't control everything. There's client needs, there's financial things I have to respond to. So you're right. It can feel like when you go into your own business, it's like, oh, you got 100% control. But the reality is the business itself has demands on you. And to your point, other people,
Right.
like you still have to respond to a lot too. It's not all just deciding, and that's not like a 100% freedom. Like I think sometimes it can look like outside in.
And you're never really off, Arlene. Honestly, you're never like take a day. Sure, take a day if you'd like, and then that just means there will be things that will go undone, and that
Right.
it's not good, especially if it's a client that's expecting a response
Right.
while you're out, whatever, right, taking
Right.
it off, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's not always what you expect it to be, for sure. So what would you recommend for someone who's interested in doing this as well? Like maybe they're interested in a franchise business. Like what's a good first step, do you think, for someone to take?
I would suggest doing their own research, but then also finding a franchise business consultant.
Hmm.
They are individuals that go out and do tons of research. They work directly with franchisors,
Hmm.
and they come back and they present to you. My husband and I did that. We worked with a franchise business consultant, so that was great. I would suggest that if you have interest, find one. They don't charge you anything to have a conversation with
Hmm.
them. I highly suggest that.
Okay. Okay.
Helps you narrow things down.
Yeah, because there are some, like, back to the just there's a lot of options for a lot of businesses work in this model. So you have a
They
lot
do.
of options to consider.
And most people have no idea. I think you mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
you when you started doing the research, was like, I had no idea that most of the stores, restaurants that I see are actually franchise opportunities. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And then what do you think helped you make this pivot? So you think just the not necessarily the business side of it, the franchise, like personally, you chose to kind of go from one thing to another. What helped you most? Because I think a lot of us know, maybe even know a little bit what we want to go to, but actually doing it, moving from where you are to where you want to be is challenging. So what do you think helped you the most in making this kind of pivot to where you are now?
So part of my why includes my family, being able to spend more time with them. And so we have two children. They were getting older. As I was matriculating up the corporate ladder, I had less time to do some of the things that I desired to do with them. And so my husband and I talked about that. Like this, I had a son going into middle school. This is could can be a challenging time. This might be a great time to make the pivot, get ahead of it a bit, and prepare for more time needed.
Mhm.
Spent with them.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
helped a lot.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Timing.
you have two adorable and amazing children, actually.
Mhm.
So, yeah, yeah, I could see that. I could, yeah. And so that why is what kind of carried you through I'm guessing there were doubts or fears or like, I don't know. Was this like, what was this like from an emotional standpoint, making this kind of a pivot?
No, there are lots of fears that come with walking away from a guaranteed salary. You
Yeah,
know that that check is going to hit your bank account,
yeah.
every 2 weeks, right? And then going into owning your own business, it's all based on revenue. It's all based on the numbers, right? So lots of emotions, and that you know months later, over a year later, Arlene, I still experience those
Yeah.
emotions daily. I'd say,
Mhm.
it's an emotional. It can be an emotional roller coaster, right? Have a huge week and you're really excited, and then
Yeah.
your design consultant calls and tells you she got three no's right in one day, and so there are lots of emotions that come along with it.
Yeah, yeah. I used to say sometimes I feel like I'm taming the lions, and sometimes I feel like they're taming me. It's like kind of depends on the
The
day, like
day,
how
that's right.
things are going. It can feel much more emotional for sure. So, okay. Well,
Bad emotions, they're great. Some of them are, you're excited and happy, right?
mhm.
Most days. Yeah.
Yeah, most days. Yeah, most days, most days. So, well, let me ask this. How can people contact you if they want to know about your business or just stay connected with you all in your business, follow your business in the community? What's the best way for people to reach you?
So we are on all social media platforms. We have a TikTok page. We're on LinkedIn. We are on Facebook and Instagram. So they can contact us via any of those platforms. If anyone's interested in speaking with me directly, I'm always open to taking calls. They can call me directly. Love to have a conversation with someone even interested in franchising.
Okay. Okay, good. We'll put all your contact information in the show notes um and I know you all like the specialty is window covering specifically, but tell me the kinds of things. Like when you say window coverings, meaning people are calling you most for what kinds of things?
So the most popular type of window treatment these days are roller shades, but we
Okay.
also offer custom drapery shutters. We also do exterior patio shades, which allow
Oh,
you to
yeah.
spend the life you spend on your patio. So
Yeah.
anything custom. So we offer faux wood blinds. There's any gamut of window treatments. We provide those services.
Yeah, I love you all's outdoor patio. I'm thinking about how you have the little things that come down to keep the bugs away and all the, yeah, things that just make it a little nicer to live, especially in this area that we live in for sure. So,
Absolutely.
okay.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to do a few kind of lightning questions at the end so people can just get to know you better. So think about this as like 30-second question, 30-second answer about what's top of mind for you for that particular topic.
Okay.
So there's three. The first one is, what is your go-to productivity hack? Like what helps you be more effective or efficient?
Lists. Every day I make lists of things that I need to get done that day. If I don't complete the list today, then whatever's left on the list is how I start my list for the next day.
Mhm.
To-do lists are my go-to, and it honestly it ensures that I get things done.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's way too many things to get done in a day, personal and for business, right? Without them, I don't think I could make it.
Yeah. Okay, back to your organization skills you learned. So, okay. What is one thing you do consistently to enjoy your life?
Spend time with family consistently. Every day I make it a point, even if I'm extremely busy or exhausted, I like to spend time with my family. And that could include just sitting around the table, talking about everyone's day, what happened,
Mhm.
listening to my children about their day, if it's, their school day, if it's during
Yeah.
the school year. Um, Family is very important.
Yeah. Okay. And what's one word of wisdom or piece of advice that you personally live by?
So I have a very strong faith in God. And so I think it's very important that in whatever aspect of life, business or personal, that I stay connected with Him through personal time, devotion, and with a body of believers. So that's
Mhm.
important.
Yeah, yeah, that's mine too. That's definitely one of mine too. So, well, thank you, Shamika. Thank you so much for joining, for sharing your journey and how you've pivoted. And for all of you all, if you're not in my email group, I want you to be. So click join the crew in the show notes or click the QR code that'll show up after the YouTube video. We'll also have all of Shamika's contact information and her business information in the show notes as well. And as always, you can always find me on Instagram at Arlene_Pace_Green. Thank you all so much for joining and be well.